Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If copy system in Naruto. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name in the description below. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also, a quick update, the stories, What If Reborn in Naruto World and What If Transmigrated as Harry Potter, are going on hold soon, as we have almost caught up with the author. So once again, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what the next project should be on this channel. I'm currently deciding between these three fanfics. What if becoming a mangaka in One Piece world? What if Dragon deck user in Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal. What if Transmigrated as a Kanto gym leader? I will be setting up a poll for this, so please vote in the poll and let me know which two stories you'd like to see next on the channel. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 161, Kushina, What's Wrong with Me Talking to Shin? Although Shin believed that his current strength was comparable to that of a 6 paths level shinobi, he didn't consider himself to have reached that level yet. In his eyes, to truly stand among 6 paths class fighters, he first had to master yin-yang release and achieve nature transformation at the bloodline selection, often dubbed Kekkei Mora. Only by controlling yin-yang release and Kekkei Mora would he gain that final metamorphosis, becoming an invincible force in the shinobi world. However, he hadn't mastered either of those yet. He felt that once he mastered yin-yang release and Kekkei Mora, his strength would undergo a true transformation, making him invincible in the shinobi world. At present, he knew there were still threats out there. Kaguya Otsutsuki, for one, remained sealed but was certainly dangerous if she ever broke free. Other unknown Otsutsuki might also roam the cosmos. Even Hagoromo Otsutsuki, the sage of 6 paths, was a potential threat. In the original story, although Hagoromo only had a fragment of his chakra left, he was still able to help Naruto and Sasuke seal Kaguya. Shin suspected Hagoromo might still be lurking somewhere, observing the shinobi world. If so, that man could present a serious menace to Shin's aspirations. So even with the Rinna Tenseigan, Shin couldn't be careless. There were still those who could threaten him. Although Shin had no personal grudge against Hagoromo, his power posed a threat, and that was enough to make him an enemy. It was like how the third Hokage targeted Shin. He saw Shin as a threat and tried to undermine him. Shin also saw Hagoromo as a threat. Even if he only had a fragment of his chakra left, he was still a threat. If Shin could find him, he would eliminate him. It wasn't about hatred, it was simply a matter of survival. Shin and what are you thinking about? Conan's voice broke his reverie. She tugged at his sleeve, her cheeks puffed in mild annoyance. She'd come for training, only to find Shin lost in thought, barely paying attention. Are you angry, Conan? Shin smiled and pinched her cheek. No. You're saying that, but your lips are so pouty they could hang an oil pot. Shin poked her nose playfully. Come on, let's head back. It's nearly mealtime, we can resume your training tomorrow. Shin led Conan back home. Makoto had already finished preparing dinner. We didn't have many ingredients, so it's nothing special, Makoto said. It looks great. Shin was satisfied with the spread. By the way, we should go shopping tomorrow, Makoto said. They were currently in the land of whirlpools, and there was no one else here besides them. To buy anything, they had to leave the land of whirlpools. It was inconvenient. But Shin knew spacetime ninjutsu, and he was planning to teach it to Kushina and the others. It was a valuable life-saving skill. He couldn't teach them Yamatsu Hirasaka, but he could teach them the Flying Thunder God technique. He had learned it from the Forbidden Scroll. It was easy for him to learn, having already mastered Yamatsu Hirasaka. But he hadn't used it yet. Yamatsu Hirasaka was more convenient. Yamatsu Hirasaka consumed more chakra, but Shin didn't care. He had plenty. We're going shopping tomorrow? I'm so excited. Kushina's eyes sparkled. Shin knew she'd probably buy random, whimsical items, but that was just how she was. At least it wasn't Tsunade, her gambling habits could bankrupt an entire country. After dinner, night fell. Shin retreated to his room to do a bit of research, trying to figure out how to unlock Kekkei Mora or Master Ian's Yang release. He pondered for hours but made little progress, unsurprising given these were essentially the pinnacle of jutsu. Sometime around midnight. Creak. His door opened quietly. Kushina slipped in, wearing only her nightclothes, moving like a burglar. She shut the door carefully and turned to see Shin's gaze. Shoo. Seeing Shin looking at her, she put a finger to her lips, shushing him. Shin was speechless. She was acting like she was sneaking into his room for a tryst. Kushina, what are you doing sneaking into my room? Shin whispered. He instinctively matched her low volume. What? You're not happy to see me? Do you not love me anymore? Kushina looked at him with feigned hurt. Shin was about to reply when. Bomb! The door flew open, nearly bouncing off its hinges. Tsunade and Makoto burst in, startling Kushina so badly she nearly fell over. What are you two doing here? Kushina demanded, flushing. Shouldn't we be asking you that question? Tsunade's face was stony. I'm having a private late-night chat with Shin. What's wrong with that? Kushina said defiantly. Oh? A private chat? Mind telling us the topic? Maybe we can join in. Makoto suggested with a sweet smile that looked anything but friendly. It gave Kushina chills. Kushina couldn't figure out how they'd caught her. She had been so quiet. We're discussing private matters. You wouldn't understand. Go away. Kushina decided to get rid of them first. We're all good friends here, right? Surely there's nothing we can't hear. Unless you're doing something shady? Makoto's eyes narrowed suspiciously. Kushina and Shin were sitting quite close. Ugh. Kushina gritted her teeth. Who was her best friend? She was ending their friendship now. Ahem, it's late. And we're going shopping early tomorrow. You should all go to bed. Without waiting for protests, he ushered Kushina, Makoto, and Tsunade out the door, ending the impromptu midnight fiasco. Chapter 162, Nawaki becomes a missing nin? This is a headache. Shin massaged his temples. He had been looking forward to Kushina's visit, but Tsunade and Makoto had ruined it. Outside his room, Tsunade, Kushina, and Makoto glared daggers at one another. I'm going to sleep. Kushina snapped, casting an annoyed glare at Tsunade and Makoto before stomping off. You'd better be grateful we're letting you go without punishment. Tsunade glared at Kushina, then returned to her own room. Makoto did the same. Although Tsunade had just arrived, she had a room. Shin had built plenty of rooms with wood release. Early the next morning, Shin was the first up as usual. He spent a while working on his taijutsu in the courtyard. Taijutsu training was something that had to be kept sharp. Once you slacked off, your edge dulled quickly. Kushina and the others soon woke up. After breakfast, they left the land of whirlpools. They were going shopping, as they had agreed yesterday. While in a border town, they overheard a piece of startling news. Konoha had a new A-rank missing nin. Shin wouldn't usually bother with gossip about missing nin unless it was something big, like S-rank. But the identity of this missing nin was a surprise. There must be a mistake. Nawaki couldn't have become a missing nin. Tsunade frowned. I know you don't want to believe it, but it's probably true, Shin said. Tsunade looked at Shin. Shin, do you know something more about this? I don't. But Nawaki must be a missing nin now. Otherwise, the news wouldn't have spread this far. They were currently at the border of the Land of Fire, far from Konoha. News of a missing nin wouldn't usually reach this remote area unless it was an S-rank missing nin. And Nawaki was the grandson of the Shodame Hokage. The news of his defection would cause a greater commotion than that of an ordinary S-rank missing nin. If Nawaki really did defect, it must be related to Oruzan in Danzo, Kushina said. I agree, Makoto said. To be honest, I'm shocked that Nawaki would become a missing nin, Shin said. The chances of Nawaki becoming a missing nin were as low as the chances of Naruto becoming one. Shin couldn't believe it when he heard the news. Let's find Nawaki first. Shin decided to find Nawaki and see what was going on. Tsunade nodded. She was also worried. The shinobi world is vast. How are we going to find him? Mikoto asked. Leave that to me. I placed a marker on Nawaki. It's easy to find him. Let's go. Shin opened a Yamatsu Hirosaka portal and led Tsunade, Kushina, Mikoto, and Konan through it. They arrived in a dark cave. The location wasn't important. What was important was that Nawaki was here. Who's there? Nawaki's voice came from the darkness. He was holding a kunai, his expression wary. He relaxed when he saw Shin. Oh, it's you guys. You scared me. He leaned against the cave wall, his clothes torn and his body bearing several wounds. You look terrible. Shin walked over and used the mystical palm jutsu to heal his injuries. Shin's medical ninjutsu was even better than Tsunade's now. Nawaki's wounds quickly healed. He also had the sage body, which had strong regenerative abilities. Nawaki, why did you defect from Konoha? Tsunade asked. Nawaki scratched his head. It's a long story. Then make it short. Remember when we were in the academy? Your dream was to become Hokage. What happened? Kushina couldn't help but tease. His dream was to become Hokage, and now he was a missing nin? I didn't want to become a missing nin. I was on a mission when my teammate attacked me. I fought back and killed him, and now I'm accused of killing a comrade. Nawaki said, frustrated. Tsunade was furious. She wanted to return to Konoha and confront Danzo. She suspected Danzo was involved. After all, he had tried to kill her before. Nawaki recounted events in detail, his voice bitter and crestfallen. He never intended to betray the village, he just ended up as a scapegoat. Now, labeled a missing nin, squads of Konoha shinobi were actively hunting him. So what are you going to do now? Shin asked. Nawaki looked at him blankly. He didn't know what to do. I told you to leave Konoha. Now look what happened, Shin said with a chuckle. I'm a missing nin now, and you're laughing? Nawaki glared at him. Don't look at me like that. It's creepy. You should be glad you're still alive. Being a missing nin isn't the end of the world. Suddenly, Shin's gaze snapped toward the cave entrance. Looks like the Konoha shinobi who are chasing you are here. Shin glanced outside the cave. What? Nawaki jumped up, his kunai gripped tightly. Leave this to me, Shin said calmly. Hey, Shin, don't kill them. They're just following orders. Nawaki said quickly. Even though he was a missing nin, he didn't want to hurt or kill Konoha shinobi. You became a missing nin because you killed a Konoha shinobi, and you still care about them? Shin looked at him in surprise. That's different. He attacked me first. What's the difference? Aren't these shinobi trying to kill you too? Nawaki was speechless. Shin was right, but he still felt it was different. Chapter 163. I don't think it's reliable. Shin looked at Nawaki's conflicted expression and shook his head. They already want you dead, why agonize over how to handle them? Besides, you're a missing nin now. You don't really think you can just stroll back into Konoha, do you? Not only Danzo but Hiruzen himself wouldn't likely allow Nawaki's return. He alone had the authority to label Nawaki a missing nin. Danzo might pull the strings from behind the scenes, but the Hokage's official decree sealed Nawaki's status. Shin left the cave. 3 Konoha shinobi were approaching, 1 elite jonin in the lead, flanked by 2 jonin. This team was more than enough to deal with Nawaki. If he wasn't injured, he might be able to handle them, but in his current state, he was no match for them. Despite possessing the raw strength of an elite jonin, Nawaki's limited battle experience would put him at a disadvantage facing a similarly ranked shinobi plus 2 more. Hence, he'd have no chance in his wounded state. The three Konoha shinobi arrived and saw Shin. Their faces paled. They recognized Shin, the infamous reaper of the shinobi world. "Run!" the elite Jonin yelled. There was no shame in running from Uzumaki Shin. But could they escape? Wind-style Rasen Shuriken. A swirling sphere of razor-sharp wind collided with them. None could flee. All three were slain in an instant, delivered to the afterlife in one brutal strike. Dealing with these shinobi was child's play to Shin. Using an S-rank jutsu was overkill. Shin turned back to the cave, stepping inside to rejoin the others. "You took care of them?" Nawaki asked. "Yeah, they're gone," Shin nodded. "I think I'm in trouble now." Nawaki sighed. Shin had killed the Konoha shinobi who were chasing him. This wouldn't be forgiven. He was a missing nin now, with no chance of redemption. Tsunade sighed. She had been planning to stay in Konoha, but now that Nawaki was a missing nin, and the rest of the Senju clan was dead, she realized the Senju clan, one of the founding clans of Konoha, was practically extinct. "I know you want to return to Konoha, but even if you do, you'll be killed. I won't be able to save you then. You're better off as a missing nin," Shin said to Nawaki. "Besides, you can't go back. You're a missing nin who killed his comrade. There's no place for you in Konoha anymore." Nawaki's spirits plummeted. He had dreamed of becoming Hokage, and now he was a missing nin. "Nawaki, don't think about it too much. Perhaps there's nothing left for us in Konoha. We can't even call ourselves a clan anymore," Tsunade said with a bitter laugh. Only she and Nawaki remained of the Senju clan. They were even fewer in number than the Uzumaki clan now. Nawaki left soon after, needing space to process the reality of his exile. Shin gave him a flying thunder god kunai before he left, telling him to use it if he was in danger. "Will he be alright?" Tsunade asked worriedly. "He'll be fine. He might be weak in my eyes, but he's still strong in the shinobi world. As long as no Kage or Quasi-Kage attacks him, he'll be safe. And even if a Kage does attack him, he has the flying thunder god kunai." Shin wasn't worried. Nawaki was at least elite Jonin level, bolstered by his Senju vitality. In truth, labeling him as A rank might even be underselling it. S rank wouldn't be out of the question. "Let's go. Where are we, anyway?" They were about to leave, but Shin looked around at the unfamiliar landscape. "Who cares? Let's just use space-time ninjutsu to leave." They used Shin's jutsu to teleport to a bustling town in the Land of Fire. They were going to buy some supplies. "Shin, I have a decision to make." "Do you want to hear it?" Kushina asked. "A decision? What kind of decision?" Shin asked, confused. "I'm going to build a hidden village. In the Land of Whirlpools. A village filled with beautiful women." Shin placed a hand on her forehead. She wasn't sick, was she? "Hey, Shin, what are you doing? Are you taking advantage of me?" Kushina asked, though she was secretly pleased. "Kushina, when did you come up with this idea?" Mikoto asked. Shin had wanted to ask the same thing. Just now. It was a sudden inspiration. "Well, I don't think it's a good idea," Shin said, shaking his head. Building a hidden village wasn't easy. It was a lot of trouble. Kushina wouldn't be able to handle it. "I don't think it's a good idea either," Makoto agreed. Tsunade let out a scornful laugh and shook her head. "Damn it, you're all awful. Nobody supports me." Kushina looked at Konan. "Konan, what do you think? Will you join my village when it's built?" "I don't think it's a good idea, Kushina-nichan," Konan said tactfully. Kushina was deflated. Even Konan didn't support her. "I'll show you. I'll build the best hidden village, and then you'll see," Kushina declared. "Shin, shouldn't you try to dissuade her?" Mikoto asked. Shin looked at Kushina, then shook his head. No need. She'll give up on this idea soon. He didn't know why she had this strange idea, but he was sure she would abandon it soon. Chapter 164, First Encounter with Madara Uchiha. After finishing their shopping, they ended up carting around a large haul of goods, food items, tools, daily supplies. All the while, Kushina continued chattering about her hidden village of beautiful women. Shin, can't you at least help me a little with this dream? Kushina begged, clinging to his arm like she was about to stage a protest. It's not that I don't want to help, but how exactly am I supposed to do that? You haven't even got a real plan. Shin chuckled. Well, I haven't figured that out yet. I'll plan it out when we get back. You have to help me then. Kushina pressed. Alright, if it's not too outrageous, I'll lend a hand. You'd better not give up partway, though. I won't. This time I'm serious. Kushina's expression was firm. Then we. Shin stopped mid-sentence and turned his head, his brow furrowed. What's wrong? Mikoto asked. Something's watching us. Wait here. I'll go catch it. Shin vanished. In the next instant, he returned clutching a bizarre, pale white figure by the neck. The heck is that thing? It looks humanish, but no human looks like that. Kushina asked, staring at the creature in surprise. This is a white Zetsu, Shin said. The white Zetsu was shocked. How did Shin know? Uchiha Madara sent you to spy on us, I assume? Shin asked. By now, the white creature was too rattled to keep its cool. This wasn't the real white Zetsu, just a clone. But there was no difference between the clones and the original. Even if the original died, the clones wouldn't die. Or rather, there was no original or clone. They were all independent white Zetsu. All white Zetsu were once humans who had been caught in the infinite Tsukuyomi. How did you know? The white Zetsu was so surprised that it accidentally revealed its connection to Madara. But even if it hadn't, Shin would have known. After all, the only person white Zetsu were associated with was Uchiha Madara. Where's Uchiha Madara? Take me to him. Shin wanted to find Madara. This was the perfect opportunity. He wasn't planning to stop Madara's Eye of the Moon plan. In fact, he wanted Madara to proceed with it and release Kaguya Otsutsuki. He had plans for Kaguya. Uchiha Madara? Kushina echoed, confused. Didn't he die ages ago? Everyone says the Shodaime killed him at the Valley of the End. Mikoto and Tsunade both chimed in. Yes, that's the story. Madara was definitely killed by the Shodaime. Long story, Shin said wryly. I'll explain later, but Madara isn't dead. Not yet. He gave white Zetsu an unamused glance. The thing clearly wouldn't cooperate willingly, so Shin decided to do it the hard way. His Rinne Tenseigen eyes glowed. Both the Rinnegan and Tenseigen possessed the power to read minds or rip out souls. Combining them only made it easier. Shin used the Rinnegan's human path to yank white Zetsu's soul free, scanning its memories. Zetsu convulsed, and after a moment, it died, its body slumping in Shin's grip. Let's go. We're not going back yet. We're going to find Uchiha Madara, Shin said with a grin. He was going to extort some good stuff from Madara. He dropped the Zetsu corpse, leaving it behind. Once more, he opened a spatial gate with Yamatsu Hirasaka, bringing Tsunade, Kushina, Mikoto, and Konan to a remote mountain. Is Uchiha Madara really in a place like this? Kushina asked skeptically, glancing around at the desolate hills. Not on the surface underground. Shin's Rinne Tenseigen easily penetrated the rock, revealing a vast subterranean network. Let's go. Shin led them to the cave. It wasn't a natural cave, Madara must have created it. Madara Uchiha, your distinguished guests have arrived. Are you not going to greet us properly? Shin called into the dim tunnels. Sure enough. In the deeper chambers, an elderly man with wrinkled skin and white hair sat connected to various pipes, a haunting echo of his former might. Despite his frail appearance, his presence radiated raw menace. He had a Sharingan. The Sharingan was probably transplanted. He had already given his Rinnegan to Nagato. "Madara-sama, it seems they've found us," a white Zetsu said in a panicked voice. "I didn't expect you to find me here." Madara looked up, his eyes gleaming. He might look frail, but his aura was still imposing. "You're still alive?" Tsunade stared at the aged Madara in shock. Though old and fragile, the figure possessed a potent, intimidating bearing. Madara turned his eyes on Tsunade. "The granddaughter of Hashirama, if I'm not mistaken," Madara remarked. Clearly, he had kept abreast of events outside, presumably through White Zetsu's intel. "You don't seem bothered by my intrusion." "Not even a little alarmed, Madara?" Madara's face revealed only fleeting surprise before reverting to stoic calm. "Alarmed? Ha, you think you're enough to make me fret?" "You sure talk tough for a guy on life support," Shin replied with a mild grin, not truly offended by Madara's arrogance. Inwardly, Madara wondered, could White Zetsu have betrayed me? No, he doesn't have the guts, so how did he find me? "Madara, how can you still be alive?" Tsunade demanded. Every corner of the shinobi world accepted that Madara died in his final battle with Hashirama Senju. The revelation that he had survived could shake the entire continent. Chapter 165, Threatening Uchiha Madara. Tsunade stood frozen, struggling to process what she was seeing. Madara Uchiha, a legend from the Warring States period, was alive. Madara ignored her shock, his gaze fixed solely on Shin. "Since you knew I was here, you still dared to show yourself?" He rose slowly, his voice deep and commanding. Behind him, the Geto statue loomed, its gaunt, skeletal form exuding a strange vitality like a withered idol that somehow still pulsed with life. Shin's eyes flicked toward the statue. Ugly, but undeniably powerful. "Madara Uchiha, what are you implying?" Shin asked dryly. "Think I'm afraid of some old rat lurking underground?" His words were laced with open disdain. Though Madara's face remained unreadable, Shin could feel the irritation simmering beneath. Sure enough, Tobi Zetsu flailed his arms in exaggerated alarm. "Talking like that to Madara-sama? I can already see your tombstone. I'll be sure to burn incense for you next year." Tsunade edged closer to Shin, whispering cautiously. "Are you sure you can handle him?" Shin merely shrugged. "Relax. He's weaker than the Otsutsuki I killed." And it was true. In his current state, Madara wasn't even close to Otsutsuki Ryusuke. Unless he was in his prime with the Rinnegan, he couldn't compare. "That thing behind him is unsettling," Konan murmured, inching closer to Shin. "Don't worry," Shin reassured her, gently ruffling her blue-violet hair. "Right now, it's just a hollow shell. After all, the Geto statue could only be controlled by the Rinnegan or, in Shin's case, his Rinne Tensegan." Shin turned his attention back to Madara. "Madara Uchiha, you had someone spy on me. Why? Let's skip the games and be direct." With a casual wave of his hand, Wood Release surged to life, forming several wooden chairs for Tsunade, Kushina, Makoto, and Konan. Madara's eyes narrowed slightly. Wood Release. This wasn't in the White Zetsu's reports. As far as Madara knew, Shin possessed Ice Release, formidable taijutsu, and the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, but not Hashirama's legendary power. Shin noticed Madara's reaction and smirked. "Surprised to see your old rival's technique?" "Oh, and by the way," Shin's grin widened. "I can use true several thousand hands too. If you want to relive that experience, just say the word." A flicker of irritation crossed Madara's face. The true several thousand hands technique brought back unpleasant memories of Hashirama Senju flattening both him and the Ninetales like an insect under a boot. Even after all these years, that battle still haunted him. "What's with the silent treatment? I asked why you've been spying on me." Shin's voice turned sharp. A sudden wave of killing intent surged from him, aimed directly at Madara. Zetsu, who had been about to speak again, froze, his body locking up. Even a creature like him could feel the suffocating weight of Shin's bloodlust. Madara's expression darkened. Shin's killing intent was on par with his own, something that few, if any, had ever achieved. "Uzumaki Shin, I thought I was already giving you due attention," Madara murmured, "but it seems I still underestimated you." At first, he hadn't taken the so-called Reaper of the shinobi world seriously. But standing before Shin now, he felt it. A real, visceral sense of impending death. Even Hashirama had never made him feel quite like this. Of course, that didn't mean Shin was stronger than Hashirama. But Madara himself was far from his prime, old, incomplete, and missing his real eyes. Shin, however, had limitless potential. "I have no interest in a long conversation," Shin said bluntly. "This place of yours is dark and damp, and I find it rather disgusting." He glanced around with mild disgust. "Seriously, how do you even live here?" Madara didn't respond. Anyway, Shin rested a hand on his hip. "You must have plenty of jutsu tucked away in that old head of yours. Be a good senior and hand them over." His real interest lay in yin-yang release, six paths senjutsu, and the countless other abilities Madara had dabbled in. Madara's brow furrowed slightly before he spoke. "You want my jutsu? That comes with a price." "A price, huh? How about your life?" Shin replied with a cold smile. A deadly silence filled the underground cavern. Madara's eyes narrowed dangerously. For a moment, the weight of his killing intent pressed down on Shin like a suffocating tide. "You brat!" Madara's voice was low, laced with menace. Madara Uchiha Shin's smirk faded, his aura flaring in response, overpowering Madara's killing intent in an instant. Even Zetsu took an unconscious step back. "Hand over what I want or I'll send you straight to meet the Sage of Six Paths." Madara's jaw clenched. In his current state, Madara was hardly the near-invincible Six Paths level foe he might become in the future. Shin knew this all too well. "You're the first to threaten me like this," Madara muttered, fury roiling inside him. "In that case," Shin said, "it's my privilege." He noted Madara's growing anger but wasn't worried. Madara wouldn't risk a life-or-death fight now. His plan remained incomplete, and his frail body wouldn't withstand a drawn-out battle. "Madara Uchiha, I'm younger and a lot less patient," Shin continued. "So make your choice soon, or I'll make it for you." He drew a kunai and casually flipped it between his fingers. Madara's expression turned even more dangerous. Shin was openly threatening him in a way he'd never experienced before. Pride told him to kill Shin, but logic reminded him his current body couldn't survive that. Win or lose, he would likely perish afterward. Chapter 166, Collaboration. A heavy silence hung over the dimly lit cavern. Madara stared at Shin. Fighting him wouldn't work, but simply handing over his jutsu felt even more humiliating, like an admission of defeat. Madara's pride wouldn't allow that. "Why are you still staring?" Shin's voice cut through the silence, his fingers lazily twirling a kunai. "My patience is wearing thin." The irritation in his tone wasn't an act. He wasn't in the mood for games. Finally, after a long pause, Madara spoke. "Uzumaki Shin, how about we collaborate?" Shin raised an eyebrow, feigning mild interest. Not surprising. Madara had two choices: eliminate him or recruit him. Since killing him was off the table, it was only natural he would try to lure Shin into his grand scheme. "Collaborate?" Shin asked, tilting his head slightly. "And what exactly do you propose?" Madara hesitated. In truth, his grand Eye of the Moon plan was to cast infinite Tsukuyomi, subjugating the entire world in a single genjutsu, his twisted path to peace. But he didn't plan on explaining all the details to Shin, whom he hardly trusted. Still, Madara reasoned that the promise of dominating the shinobi world might entice Shin enough to cooperate. "Do you desire to rule the shinobi world?" Madara finally asked. "Rule the shinobi world?" Shin murmured, rubbing his chin in mock contemplation. that does sound tempting. His words were a lie. Shin couldn't have cared less about controlling anything. But acting intrigued might help him get what he wanted. Madara's jutsu knowledge. Also, Shin needed Madara to continue the Eye of the Moon plan. He knew the true mastermind behind it was Black Zetsu, orchestrating Kagaya's revival. Tsunade, sitting beside Shin, frowned slightly but remained silent. She didn't trust Madara, but she trusted Shin. If he was playing along, he had a reason. This creature behind me. Madara gestured toward the Geto statue, its lifeless, skeletal form looming in the background. It is the husk of the Ten Tails. The statement drew a sharp glance from Kushina. Wait, 10 tails? I thought there were only 9, she whispered. Madara gave her a brief glance, then continued addressing Shin. By collecting the 9-tailed beasts, the Geto statue can be revived as the 10 tails. His voice was calm, confident. And the one who becomes its Jinchuriki will awaken the Rinne Sharingan, the key to casting the ultimate Genjutsu upon the moon. Shin narrowed his eyes. And what exactly does that do? Of course, he already knew. It is called Infinite Tsukuyami, the perfect world. Madara's voice was smooth, persuasive. A world without war. Without suffering. Through the Rinne Sharingan, one can place the entire world under a dream, a peaceful dream. True unity, beyond human limitations. Ha! Sounds poetic. Shin smirked. So you want to trap everyone in a dream and call it peace? Peace is peace, regardless of the means. Madara's voice remained firm. The world will never find balance on its own. It needs a shepherd, someone with the power to guide it properly. Shin let the words linger for a moment before leaning back slightly. I'm intrigued. But talk is cheap. He extended a hand. If you want my help, show me proof of honesty. Madara's gaze darkened slightly. He knew what Shin was asking for. The forbidden arts. The secrets of the Uchiha clan. The very knowledge that gave him an edge over the world. He didn't like it. But he had no choice. With a slow, deliberate motion, he reached into his cloak and retrieved a large scroll. Everything you seek is in here, Madara said, tossing it over. Yin Yang release. 6 paths Senjutsu. My clan's lost fire release techniques. If there is anything you don't understand, ask me. Shin caught the scroll effortlessly. His eyes scanned its contents. As expected, 6 paths Senjutsu, Yin Yang release techniques, and powerful Uchiha fire release jutsu that had been lost over time. Great fire annihilation. Great fire destruction. Dragon flame release song technique. Rare knowledge. Dangerous knowledge. A smirk spread across his lips. Not bad. You're surprisingly generous, Madara. I do not deal in deception. Madara's voice was unreadable. If I say I will cooperate, I mean it. Good to hear. Shin rolled up the scroll and tucked it away. So, what's next? Madara didn't answer immediately. He studied Shin carefully. You say you are interested, Madara finally said, but I do not trust you. Likewise. Shin smiled. Then we will keep things simple. Madara's tone turned sharp. When the time comes, I will summon you. Until then, I will observe you. Fair enough. Shin stood up, stretching slightly. He had gotten what he came for. There was no need to linger. He turned toward the others. We're done here. Let's go. Tsunade, Kushina, Makoto, and Konan rose from their seats. I'm not fond of places like this, Shin muttered, glancing around the damp, eerie cavern. It's depressing. With that, he walked away. Tsunade, Kushina, Makoto, and Konan followed, their footsteps echoing through the underground chamber as they made their way back toward the surface. Madara remained seated, watching them disappear into the darkness. His expression was unreadable. For the first time in a long time. He was uncertain. Chapter 167, The Secret of Immortality. After Shin left, Madara Uchiha remained still, his expression unreadable. His sharp gaze lingered on the now empty cavern entrance, his thoughts deep and calculating. Phew, he finally left. Tobizetsu exhaled dramatically, shaking his head as if trying to dispel lingering tension. That guy's aura was insane, even more imposing than yours, Madara-sama. Tobizetsu glanced at Madara, then spoke with an exaggerated sigh. You trying to get yourself killed? A new voice cut in as White Zetsu emerged from the shadows beside Tobizetsu. How dare you compare Uzumaki Shin to Madara-sama? Madara ignored their exchange, his fingers tapping lightly against the stone armrest of his seat. Make no mistake. His voice was calm, but there was an unmistakable edge to it. That brat is no ordinary opponent. If I'd had the chance to take him down, I wouldn't have compromised. Shin's discovery of his hideout was a major risk one Madara wasn't comfortable with. If he had been certain of victory, he would have killed him already. But he wasn't certain. Shin wielded the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, Ice Release, and most alarmingly, Wood Release. Madara knew better than anyone the power of the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. He had fought and bled for it, had seen firsthand what it could achieve. And Wood Release. The very power that once humiliated him in battle, used by his eternal rival, Hashirama Senju. Shin had even mentioned True several thousand hands, the same technique Hashirama used to crush him and the Ninetales. That technique required Sage Mode to activate. If Shin had mastered that too. Adding in his Ice Release and Space-Time Ninjutsu, Madara couldn't afford to be careless. Even Madara-sama is wary of him. White Zetsu's voice was unusually serious. So that Shin guy really is a menace. He might become a bigger danger down the road. You think I don't see that? Madara snapped, his gaze cold. The cavern fell into silence. For now, we have little choice. Leave the rest to me, I have my own plans. Madara closed his eyes, dismissing them. White Zetsu hesitated, but one glance at Madara's unshakable resolve was enough. Without another word, he and Tobizetsu sank back into the darkness. With a flicker of movement, Shin and the others left the damp underground cavern, stepping through the void of space before reappearing in the land of whirlpools, their home. We really hit the jackpot. Shin grinned, tossing a large scroll to Makoto. This is Madara's fire release archive. His techniques are devastating, and his insights are even more valuable. Makoto's eyes flickered with interest as she caught the scroll. Madara's fire release. She didn't hesitate, she immediately opened it, scanning its contents with rapt focus. Madara's fire release mastery was second to none, refined through decades of battle. His personal notes alone were worth more than gold. Shin, are you really going to cooperate with Madara Uchiha? Tsunade's voice was sharp, her golden eyes watching him closely. Why not? Shin replied casually. Tsunade frowned. Because Madara isn't simple, she said firmly. I'm worried he'll trick you somehow. That man's lived for too long, he's cunning. Shin blinked in mild exasperation. Since when am I easy to trick? I know you're clever, Tsunade admitted, but facing Madara, the sly old fox who fooled the entire world into thinking he was dead, I wouldn't take it lightly. She had a point. Even Hashirama Senju didn't know Madara was still alive. Shin, do you really plan to rule the world with him? Kushina's voice carried a hint of amusement, though her crimson eyes held genuine curiosity. No. Shin shook his head. I have no such ambition. Then why agree to his plan? Makoto asked. Be careful around him, Shin nii, Konan added softly. He feels so dangerous. Shin chuckled. I only agreed to get his jutsu, he admitted, then added, and there's something else I want, immortality. Tsunade's expression darkened. Immortality? She crossed her arms skeptically. Immortality is a myth. Even the sage of six paths eventually passed on. At that moment, the system's voice echoed in Shin's mind. Master, you intend to copy Kagaya Otsutsuki's immortal body, correct? Shin raised an eyebrow, momentarily surprised. The system rarely spoke unless necessary. That's right, Kagaya is immortal, I want that same power. Shin replied inwardly. Who wouldn't? Immortality was the ultimate safeguard. You don't actually need that, Master. Since you've fully bonded with me, you cannot die unless the system itself is destroyed, the system said. The revelation struck Shin like a lightning bolt. He stood there, momentarily stunned. Wait. What? You are already immortal, Master. Shin's mind went blank for a moment. Shin? Kushina's voice snapped him back to reality. You zoned out. Something wrong? No. Shin exhaled. Just thinking. You mentioned immortality, Kushina said curiously, and that it was tied to cooperating with Madara. But come on, this world has no such thing. You're wrong. Shin's voice was calm, but firm. Immortality does exist. Kagaya Otsutsuki is still alive, sealed away. And as for me... A small smirk played on his lips. I'm already immortal. My next goal? Making all of you immortal too. He announced it so matter-of-factly that Tsunade, Kushina, Makoto, and Konan all froze. They obviously didn't believe him. Ha, if that's real, I might just offer you my entire self, Tsunade joked sarcastically. Oh? Don't regret that promise later, Shin teased right back. I believe you, Kushina suddenly declared. I'll offer my body right now. She jumped into his arms. She practically lunged into Shin's arms, but Tsunade and Makoto teamed up in perfect synergy, yanking her away before she could follow through. Hey! Let me go! Kushina struggled. Knock it off, Kushina, Makoto said calmly. Shin, Kushina might be delirious. We should get her to bed before she spouts more nonsense. I'm not delirious. You two are just jealous. Kushina shot back. Despite her protests, Tsunade and Makoto dragged her away, her complaints echoing down the hall. Chapter 168, The Path to Gathering Tailed Beasts Chakra. TCH. I was really looking forward to seeing Kushina offer herself to me. He shook his head in disappointment. Sadly, Tsunade and Makoto had whisked her away before things could get interesting. Konan stepped forward, gazing at Shin with shy determination. Shin I believe you too. Shin glanced at her, raising an eyebrow at her soft voice. Oh? His lips curled into a smirk. Are you saying you want to offer yourself to me as well? If it were Kushina, she'd have jumped at the chance to banter back. But Konan was far more reserved, her cheeks instantly glowed bright red, and she fled in embarrassment. Shin watched her go, marveling at just how easily flustered she was. Too easy. After a moment of silence, Shin shifted his focus back to the massive scroll on the table, the one he had obtained from Madara Uchiha. Unrolling it, he carefully scanned the contents. Fire release techniques were the easiest for him to absorb. His Sharingan allowed him to memorize them instantly, and his chakra control was already beyond exceptional. But Yin-Yang release and Six Paths Senjutsu were another matter entirely. According to this, using Six Paths Senjutsu calls for the power of the tailed beasts. Talk about a hassle. Shin frowned slightly. Six Paths Senjutsu was an advanced fusion of tailed beast chakra and natural energy, a power exclusive to those who had acquired chakra from all 9 tailed beasts. In the original story, only a handful of shinobi had ever attained this level of power. Hagoromo Otsutsuki, the sage of 6 paths, had mastered it as the first 10 tails Jinchuriki. Madara Uchiha had obtained it after absorbing the chakra of the 10 tails. Naruto Uzumaki had inherited it through the blessing of the tailed beasts and the sage's divine gift. Even Obito Uchiha, despite becoming the 10 tails Jinchuriki, had failed to achieve true 6 paths Senjutsu because he lacked mastery over natural energy. Shin's fingers drummed against the table as he thought. Am I supposed to become the 10 tails Jinchuriki? Shin muttered. His brow furrowed slightly at the idea. He disliked the notion of stuffing that monster inside his own body, not to mention the risk of serving as Kagaya's vessel. Although he was confident she couldn't hijack him, it still felt unsavory. I guess I'll take a more roundabout approach, like copying each tailed beast's power instead. A plan began to take shape in his mind. Shin had an ace up his sleeve, his replication cards. He currently possesses 1 divine replication card, 2 advanced replication cards, 1 common replication card. These were his annual rewards from the system. I'll probably need at least an advanced replication card to copy a single-tailed beast chakra. Even that might not be enough for something as strong as the 9 tails. If the weaker-tailed beasts rivaled Kage-level power, the strongest might be well beyond that. The cost in replication cards could be huge: 8 advanced plus 1 divine, potentially. A sigh escaped his lips. Hey, system, got any missions for me? If there were missions, he could complete them to earn replication cards faster. No missions at the moment. Figures. Shin clicked his tongue. He wasn't the type to sit around and wait for resources to fall into his lap. Then I'll just use another method. That's when it hit him. He recalled his Rinnegan-based ability to absorb chakra. Why waste replication cards when he could simply siphon tailed beast chakra directly? This meant he could drain chakra from the tailed beasts without even needing replication cards. A slow grin spread across his face. That's it. I'll gather the tailed beast's chakra the smart way. Once he had all 9 types of chakra, he would be able to unlock 6 paths senjutsu and eventually gain access to truth-seeking orbs. It's decided. His next goal was set in stone. That evening, at dinner, Shin informed Tsunade and the others of his intention to gather tailed beast chakra. Are you going on your own? Mikoto asked. Not if you all come along, Shin replied, glancing at Tsunade, Kushina, and Mikoto. If you join me, I won't be lonely on the road. Shin and I'll go with you, Conan piped up at once. Shin smiled. Good. That makes 1. He turned to Tsunade, Kushina, and Mikoto. How about you 3? Kushina grinned and immediately hooked her arm around his. Of course I'm coming. Then, without missing a beat, she added. But after we're done, you have to help me with something. What's something? Shin narrowed his eyes. Help me build my hidden village of beautiful Kunoichi. She still hadn't let go of that dream. No thanks. That's a massive chore. He wasn't interested in dealing with the headache of founding a new village. All I want is for you to raise the village with your wood release. That's not such a big deal, is it? Kushina pouted. Oh. That's all? Shin blinked. His lips quirked into a grin. Fine. I'll help. With wood release, he could construct an entire village in a single day. That much wasn't a problem. We'll rest tonight and leave at dawn, Shin announced. This wasn't just about gathering tailed beast chakra, it was also an opportunity to explore the world together. There were still many places he hadn't visited, and this journey would allow him to witness the shinobi world firsthand. Oh, Shin. Kushina's voice took on a playful lilt as she leaned closer. I want to discuss village plans with you tonight. Shin glanced at her and smirked. Sure. Let's discuss it. Can we sit in on this discussion? Mikoto interjected suddenly. Kushina froze. Then, shaking her head furiously, she quickly said. Nope. It's top secret. And you can't eavesdrop. Tsunade folded her arms, a knowing look in her eyes. Top secret, huh? Not planning anything scandalous, I hope? Her lips curled into a smirk. Ugh. You two are such pests, always messing up my plans. Kushina huffed. Tsunade and Mikoto snickered at her frustration. Chapter 169, First Target, Shikaku. Morning came early the next day. Shin awoke at first light, remembering how Tsunade and Mikoto's meddling last night had stopped him from having a proper chat with Kushina. He had woken up early and decided to cook breakfast himself. Mikoto usually handled the kitchen, but today, she deserved to rest. Wow, that smells amazing. Shin, you cooked all this, right? Kushina stepped out of her room, caught a whiff of the delicious food, and sprinted over to the table. I can tell just from the scent this is definitely your cooking. He nodded, watching her inhale the aroma. It's been a while since I've tasted Shin's cooking, Tsunade added, sitting down. Ever since Makoto joined us, she's been doing most of the cooking. Shin merely shrugged. As they all settled at the table, Tsunade eyed him curiously. So, what do you need tailed beast chakra for? Don't tell me you plan to revive the 10 tails. No, Shin said evenly. To fully resurrect the 10 tails, you'd need the entire beasts. Just small amounts of chakra won't cut it. I do need all 9-tailed beasts' energies, but only for 6 paths senjutsu. Aha! Tsunade nodded vaguely, clearly not fully grasping it. Shin noticed, but he didn't poke fun. Annoying Tsunade rarely ended well. What about Madara Uchiha? She continued. I still say it'd be better to get rid of that man sooner or later. She had no desire for someone as dangerous and ambitious as Madara to remain alive, especially given her personal hatred. After all, the Valley of the End battle had left her grandfather wounded. Not long after Madara's supposed death, Hashirama Senju had passed away, too, and Tsunade felt Madara bore part of the blame. No rush, Shin replied. Later, if you want, Tsunade, you can kill him with your own hands. You think I could? Tsunade snorted, unconvinced. Don't sell yourself short, he said with a grin. After all, you have me, the undisputed best in the world, by your side. Surpassing Madara's not impossible. I see your confidence is intact, Tsunade muttered, rolling her eyes. She then grew serious. Anyway, if you plan to gather tailed beast chakra from multiple villages, you know that basically puts you at odds with the entire shinobi world. Even I'm tempted to stop you. She pictured how vital the tailed beasts were to every hidden village. This was practically looking for trouble on a massive scale. Let them come, Shin said with a careless shrug. If the entire shinobi world banded together against me, I still wouldn't lose. I only need to worry about actual 6 paths level foes. Although he was a pseudo 6 paths at the moment, Shin's fighting ability put him in league with fully realized 6 paths combatants. Only the highest tier of power could challenge him. Don't be reckless, she warned. There's a limit to what you can handle alone. You're right, he conceded. I'll at least keep a low profile. I'm not out to cause pointless trouble. I can disguise myself if needed. He sipped his tea, then glanced around the group. So, first target, Shikaku, the one-tail. Why start there? Makoto asked. Isn't it closer to hit Kiri for the 3 tails or even Konoha for the 9 tails? I want them in order, Shin answered. The Geto statue sealed them from 1 to 9, so I'll mimic that. You can think of me as a human Geto statue, collecting each beast's chakra in turn. Who knows if that'll grant me real 10 tails power? Probably not, unless I merged with the Geto statue itself. But I have zero interest in being the 10 tails Jinchuriki. That means heading for the Land of Wind, Kushina said brightly, and we've never gone there before. Trust me, it's not a nice place, Tsunade remarked wryly. Either way, Shin said, Hiruzen sold Shikaku back to Suna, so we'll find it there. In truth, Hiruzen had returned the one-tail to avoid war with Suna, receiving a hefty payment in return. But it left Suna even more impoverished. Should we teleport straight there, Shin? Kushina asked. No need, Shin replied. We'll take our time and do a bit of sightseeing. If I'd been in a hurry, we could have left last night. Shin, you seem to know everything about this world, Makoto remarked. Mind telling us more about these secret truths of the shinobi world? At her words, Kushina, Tsunade, and Konan all turned expectant gazes on him. It was obvious Shin possessed knowledge far beyond the norm, from the existence of the Otsutsuki on the moon to the evolution of the Sharingan and Madara's survival. Shin caught their curious looks and decided he might as well share a few secrets. After all, it wasn't as if they were forbidden. Chapter 170, Arrival in Sunagakure. For several days, Shin informed Tsunade, Kushina, Makoto, and Konan about various hidden truths of the shinobi world, particularly the tangled legacy of the Otsutsuki. So, according to what you've told us, Makoto said, looking stunned, all these major clans are basically descended from the Sage of Six Paths. And Madara Uchiha is just a pawn? Tsunade added, her tone holding a trace of grim amusement. Shin had explained the real Eye of the Moon plan, that Black Zetsu was behind it all, aiming to resurrect Kaguya through Madara, who remained clueless about his role as a mere tool. I kind of pity him, Tsunade remarked. She wore a half-smile but clearly lacked genuine sympathy. Kushina tugged at Shin's sleeve. Hey, Shin, how do you know so much about these secret details? You always seem to have inside info, she asked, curiosity gleaming in her eyes. That's my secret, Shin replied, shaking his head lightly, I'm not ready to spill it yet. Ugh, fine, she muttered, knowing from experience that pushing him wouldn't help. Makoto studied Shin's expression. If you're aware of the truth behind the Eye of the Moon plan, she said, does that mean you intend to stop it? Why bother? Shin answered with a casual shrug. It might be entertaining to let things play out. Even if Kaguya does get revived, I'm not about to lose. By then, I'll be powerful enough to crush her. Kushina scrunched her nose. Wow, sealed by her own children. If it were me, I'd have smacked them senseless first. A few days later, they finally entered the Land of Wind, securing a map to avoid wandering aimlessly. Without guidance, one could easily get lost in the endless sand. Even with a map, it was no simple task. At some point, Shin noticed they'd strayed off course. He double-checked the map. Kushina, I told you not to volunteer as our guide, he remarked in exasperation. Looks like we're way off track. I couldn't possibly mess up, she protested. Sure. Then you keep following this path, and the rest of us will turn around, Shin teased, taking Konan's hand as Tsunade and Makoto went with him. Hey, don't leave me. Kushina yelped, hurrying after them. I really messed up, huh? Yup, Shin said with a light sigh. If we stuck to your route, we'd never reach Sunagakure. Let's keep going this way, I'll handle navigation. 2 days later, they arrived at Sunagakure, a village nestled around a small oasis in the middle of the desert. How do we get in? Tsunade asked, eyeing the walls. Sneak in at night? Sneak? Shin snorted. We can just walk in. Who's going to stop us? Me, creeping around like a thief in the night? Please. He had no interest in crawling through shadows. Confidently, they approached the gate, where two Suna shinobi stood watch. The moment the guards recognized Shin, they turned pale with fear, one of them collapsing onto his backside. It's Uzumaki Shin, the Reaper of the shinobi world. Shin arched a brow at that title. He recalled how people in the shinobi world had begun calling him that after the last war. They remember me even after 3 years? He chuckled. I'm flattered. Seeing Tsunade, the guards grew more agitated. And that's Tsunade of the Sannin, one croaked, recognizing her too. I'm no Sannin, Tsunade said flatly. She had no desire to claim any affiliation with Konohagakure these days. With her brother branded a missing nin, Konoha felt alien to her. Let's go in, Shin said, sparing the terrified guards a glance before strolling past them. They were too petrified to even attempt interference. Neither guard dared to lift a finger. Shin led his companions in, leaving the two behind too terrified to intervene. After a stunned moment, they scrambled upright and rushed off to inform the third Kazekage. Glancing around, Shin noticed the worn structures and modest attire of the locals. This place practically reeks of poverty, he mused. Makes sense. After losing the war and having to buy back the one tail, they must be dead broke. In the First Shinobi World War, Sunagakure had been on the losing side, forced to pay heavy reparations to Konoha. Later, they'd spent a fortune reclaiming Shikaku from Hiruzen. Now the village was scraping by, living in borderline squalor. Aren't we here for the one tail? Tsunade asked. Why stroll around like tourists? No rush, Shin said, grinning. We'll see the village first. Maybe Shikaku or the Kazekage will just show up. This is your first time here, right? Aren't you curious? Kushina, Makoto, and Konan gazed at Sunegakure's unfamiliar streets. Tsunade was also seeing it for the first time. Do you really think the one tail will come out on its own? Makoto asked skeptically. Probably not, Shin chuckled. But the third Kazekage's bound to appear once he gets the news. Then I'll ask him to hand over Shikaku one way or another. That wraps up this part of What If Copy System in Naruto. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Just a quick reminder, the stories, What If Reborn in Naruto World and What If Transmigrated as Harry Potter, are going on hold soon, as we have almost caught up with the author. So once again, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what the next project should be on this channel. I'm currently deciding between these 3 fanfics. What if becoming a mangaka in One Piece world? What if Dragon Deck user in Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal. What if Transmigrated as a Kanto gym leader? I will be setting up a poll for this, so please vote in the poll and let me know which 2 stories you'd like to see next on the channel. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.